Cineminos, worldwide fans of the planet's hottest entertainment with an edge. I'm Jaime En Fuego, welcoming you to my namesake program, Enfuegotainment. That's right, you can just call me Fuego for short, and I'm super stoked that you are here for the last of my year-ending, decade-ending, segueing into this new 10 years, this new year, this 2020, with my most anticipated films of this new year that we are already in the midst of, but yes, there was some other coverage I was trying to finish up, horror show stuff, the fun juggling act that is all of that. But I am going to run down 11, because this one goes to 11, and also a couple honorable mentions as far as stuff that I'm really stoked to see that is not of the scarific variety. So yes, it's not going to entail, the new James Wan movie or the new Edgar Wright, of which I'm super pumped for, and various others. Jump over to the Horror Show channel here on YouTube if you want to see spectacular stuff, because those are really probably some of, if not my most anticipated of the year, but there are a couple here that you will hear me gush about. So a couple honorable mentions. Coming to America, I love Dolomite Is My Name, and just seeing Eddie Murphy's resurgence, his repairing with the director of that film for this sequel. Arsenio Hall is coming back. I mean, it's some James Earl Jones, I think, also. So yeah, stoked as hell for that one. Also, there's still rumblings that this Kung Fury, full-length movie, they're still calling it Kung Fury, but it's really Kung Fury 2. If you guys have never seen the trailer for Kung Fury, so there was first a proof of concept trailer, and then there was about a 30-minute movie that Cecil and I from the Horror Show actually reviewed, and it never ended up on the channel because the file was corrupted when I was trying to transfer it from my camera onto, it's just silliness. But long story short, if you want 80s throwback fighting, vulgarity, craziness, I mean, I think Arnie is even supposed to be in this one in the smaller role, David Hasselhoff, all these silly people, Fassbender even, if I remember. Hit me in the comments and berate me if I'm mistaken, but yeah, I mean, Kung Fury, just the property alone, I know it's from, this guy who was a writer slash director slash star, I think from Sweden, if I'm not mistaken, too. I'm stoked to see maybe more money pumped into this and, turned into something awesome, but no exact release date. And that's the thing, it's there's a lot of stuff that is supposedly coming in 2020, but it's a TBA, and we know that that doesn't necessarily guarantee it's going to come out this year. And there's other stuff that they're thinking will come out this year, like the new Wes Anderson movie, The French Dispatch, which is hitting the festival circuit, but there's no guarantees, and so they can't include any of those, which is kind of a bummer. But Birds of Prey, I watched the new trailer, and the new trailer got me so much more sold on this, especially if they're going to make it R-rated, especially if, the whole Joker reaction is going to be, just giving more free reins and stuff. But I don't necessarily feel like that has to be the case, with James Gunn's Suicide Squad, for instance. There's rumors that's also going to be R-rated, but with all the Joker success, that was a very gritty, particular take. Certain properties don't lend themselves to being R-rated, although others do. Deadpool, R-rated. Shazam, definitely not needing to be R-rated. So, I think at this point, since we've shown that, superhero comic book based properties can be successful one way or the other, it's really a case-by-case basis. But I'm much more excited about Birds of Prey than I was before the second trailer that we just got, which is actually really, really good. I like it a lot better than the first one. Next up is Black Widow, and Black Widow, I'm kind of wondering where the hell the MCU goes at this particular point in Phase 4, because it's very much scaling back. I was never the biggest fan of Scarlett Johansson in that role in particular anyway, and while it's cool to see Harbor and it's cool to see, Florence Pugh, or, I didn't like Midsommar, but I loved Fighting With My Family, so, that's something to take into consideration. I don't know, the ensemble looks really cool, but since I'm not that big into the character, and I've already seen, Red Sparrow and Atomic Blonde and so many of these other kind of similar situations. And La Femme Nikita, for God's sake. Come on, guys. I'm not very excited about that movie. But since it's Marvel, it's their first new film in the post-Thanos phase. Well, technically the post-Thanos phase is Far From Home, but yes, in Phase 4, if we're going to be really, really specific about it. That was an epilogue, though, in a lot of ways, as everybody knows, and plus it was Sony. So this is Marvel, Black Widow. I'm curious, but so I have to at least mention it. And then lastly, Venom 2. It has a tentative release date of this fall, but Andy Serkis directing, returning, I don't know, man. I guess Michelle Williams is coming back. We also have Tom Hardy coming back, and also who was in the post credits, none other than Woody. But I didn't like the last movie very much at all, except for the good cop, bad cop stuff and some of the silliness with, his internal frustration. And the film just took a very strange tone that I didn't particularly like. The returning director, Fleischer, I want to say, the guy who did Zombieland 2, which I love Double Tap, But Venom 2 is another one along with Morbius that I'm just curious about. So now as we segue into top 11 proper, and really it just goes from some of my more anticipated to my most anticipated, which comes in December. But I'm doing all of this pretty much in release date order, so just bear with me, everybody. But first off, we have what comes out later this month. This is The Gentleman. This is Hugh Grant. This is Matthew McConaughey. This is Charlie Hunnam, I want to say, if I remember his name correctly, from Sons of Anarchy. Anytime Guy Ritchie is making a movie like this, along the lines of Rock'n'Rolla and Snatch, and he produced Layer Cake, that was, what basically sent off the career of none other than Matthew Vaughn, his directorial debut. But I love these British mobster, mafia-esque movies, honestly, at least with this particular tone, a lot more than most of their American counterparts for whatever reason, Lock, Stock, and Smoking Barrels, obviously, how can we not mention the one that started all for Ritchie? I'm stoked about this movie. The trailer is amusing and gives a massive implication of violence, and it's basically about this marijuana dealer in London who has decided he's going to sell his company, and then all of these sharks descend upon the proceedings, and it looks super fun. January 24th is when we get the arrival of that. Next up, on March 6th, we have Onward, which is the first of two different Pixar ventures that are being released through Disney later this year. Because remember, Pixar was originally part of Disney, and then they went on their own, and then they got re-assimilated sort of situation, almost like the Borg or something. But so Onward has Chris Pratt and Tom Holland, and the both of them voice these elves that are trying to Weekend at Bernie's status, revive the other half, because they only get half of their dead father, and they go on this road trip. It looks silly, it looks heartwarming, I'm totally all about that. And this is more or less tied with Soul, which is coming way later in the year on June 19th, and that's the other Pixar effort, which has, I know it has Will Smith, and I'm trying to remember the name of 30 Rock and, Saturday Night Live lady. Who cares? Not of the utmost importance. One of the biggest things for me here is the fact that it deals, I said Will Smith, Jamie Foxx, Derp, Fuego, Derp. Terrible, terrible. Atticus Ross, Trent Reznor doing the score for this, and they're really branching out if they're doing this sort of stuff for Disney. But bottom line, it's about a musician guy who dies, and then what the afterlife entails, and it has themes of reincarnation and all of that different stuff. And so that's big time as far as thematically, but that's the afterthought compared to Onward, which comes out in March, which I'm a little bit more intrigued by. Another Disney property, because Disney rules the world at this particular point, as we're all slowly starting to figure out, the live-action Mulan, March 27th. The live-action Mulan looks epic. It looks badass. I am actually totally okay with the fact that they're omitting the sing-along aspects as opposed to maybe some scoreness, here and that. I fell off the Disney train in the mid to late 90s, when they were getting to Mulan, Hercules, Emperor's New Groove, all that different stuff. I was old enough at that point where I was just like, meh, Disney is not my thing anymore. And then it's funny how I've circled back and have gone back and watched and appreciated. I like Mulan, Eddie Murphy especially, as the dragon is terrific, but it's just not one of those. I was even past the Disney aspect by the time Aladdin and The Lion King were coming out. I don't know. The best of Disney for me is the much older stuff like Alice in Wonderland and Pinocchio, Sleeping Beauty, Snow White, stuff like that. So that's where my heart lies, and so I don't have these close connections with something like Mulan that a lot of other people that are younger than me, you know, being in my 30s now, you know, they just don't really, you know, I don't know, they kind of hold a much harsher regard. And I actually, it's funny how I ended up loving Aladdin so much more than Lion King this past year. So I don't know, I'm pretty pumped for this adaptation actually, and I like the different take that they are going with. April 3rd, we have the movie that a lot of people thought was going to get dumped on Hulu. We didn't think there was any chance that it was going to be seen, especially in its original intended form, but according to Josh Boone, as of Twitter, in the last, since the new year, in the last week or so, he says that we saw this new trailer for the New Mutants on April 3rd, or excuse me, this past week, and on April 3rd, his original vision of New Mutants is going to be coming to theaters. It's the final Fox-produced X-verse, you know, side whatever thing, and it's gonna, you know, we all know mutants have to get folded into the MCU inevitably. That really, at this particular point, feels like overstuffing a turkey, because I really did like the sense of separance that we got. I felt like all of those universes are so rich in their, you know, just distinction and, you know, just being not together, but crossovers and Money Man and all that other stuff. I mean, put in the Fantastic Four before you put in mutants and, you know, the entire X-verse, which is so vast and just massive. But yeah, I'm actually pumped that we are going to get this film finally, that I remember doing a trailer reaction to like nearly 2.5 years ago. It's insane. So I'm pumped for that, April 3rd. Next up, we have we're jumping a little ways actually. So on June 5th, Wonder Woman 1984. The trailer reaction to this is apparently the most viewed video on Enfuegotainment at this particular point by like 3 times. It's crazy how that trended in the manner in which that it did. All the girls, you know, Catherine, Marcia, and Susie respectively, got a lot of crap from really nasty commenters, and that happens inevitably when you have something that goes viral. I'm pumped for this movie. I loved the first Wonder Woman until the third act got into the tropes that are more expected with this sort of superhero film, but Gal Gadot, as she is supposed to be pronounced according to an Israeli commenter, or a Hebrew commenter in Hebrew, Gal Gadot. I will continue to say it properly throughout the rest of my film covering career, but Gal Gadot was great. So much better than I anticipated with the little bit of film work that I'd seen her in previously. Chris Pine returning in a capacity that has been debated, but I feel like in contrast with some silly speculations that Cecil put forward, yes, it is made very obvious that he has been resurrected and is not Martian Manhunter, everybody. Sorry, Cecil, I love you, buddy, but yeah. Maybe some stone speculation from you and K. Smith in that regard. But yeah, I'm pumped for this movie. The fact that, you know, we have our returning, you know, lady director and everything. And the 80s thing, you know, you can be critical like I maybe was a little bit in the trailer reaction about the fact that everything is trying to go Stranger Things at this point. Which to a degree, it is, you know, but, you know, I'm stoked for this film and, you know, just more from this character. Very, very excited. Then we have our July 3rd. I can't believe that Van Wilder is getting a July 4th like weekend kind of film, and it's called Free Guy. And this looks kind of Pixels-ish, if you ever saw that very strange Chris Columbus, Adam Sandler film, which I didn't hate like a lot of people did. I was actually kind of amused by it. But it's about, you know, Ryan Reynolds, our Deadpool, but he will forever be Van Wilder to me, being this character in a video game who, you know, he's like a non-playable character, you know, kind of like what we saw in the Jumanji sequel, but he suddenly becomes self-aware in this weird, it's almost like, it's a combination between like Fortnite and Grand Theft Auto, and yeah, he's doing his thing after becoming self-aware, but he's like so cheery and helpful and like wanting to change the nastiness of the violent culture and the villainousness and all this other stuff. It looks over the top, it looks silly. No doubt going to be PG-13, but it looks like an amusing, big budget popcorn romp that, you know, he just continues to endear himself to me, you Ryan Reynoldsy, you know, little man. So yes, jumping forward to July 17th, just 2 weeks later, we have the return of one of the most celebrated directors of this past couple of decades. I mean, Christopher Nolan. I didn't love Dunkirk, you know? I didn't love Dark Knight Rises. I didn't adore The Dark Knight like a lot of people, you know? For me, it's more like Memento and Inception, and honestly, Batman Begins is my favorite of his trilogy that he did there. But there is no denying the fact that he is a visually stunning director. He's a visionary in every possible regard. And the Tenet trailer, or Tenet, I don't know. I saw an extended scene trailer for it ahead of a film that I saw a couple weeks ago. I can't remember which one it was, but it's available online, and it is dealing once again, Inception-wise, with like perception of time and space, and you know, there's these terrorists that go into this like symphony that's playing, you know, this awesome orchestral kind of audience attended aspect, and it's really harrowing and just kind of terrifying in a lot of ways. So I think it looks dope. I'm really curious what the extent of the story is going to entail. Cast is terrific, so bring it on. Next up, August 21st. Yes, we have the Wild Stallions returning to screen, man. And yeah, Samara Weaving is actually one of their children. It's crazy. So Bill and Ted Face the Music, the third and presumed final film in a trilogy that the director has been trying to get it off the ground for a long ass time, and it wasn't until the photos were in Entertainment Weekly where I was just like, okay, this is actually happening, and it's wrapped, it's in post-production, coming out in August 21st, as I mentioned, and it's about the fact that, yeah, they didn't actually save the universe, so to speak, as they were supposed to. And that's kind of a bummer, but I'm stoked to see the ageless Keanu, you know, jump back into this. Winters, not so much, you know, he's not quite as ageless, unfortunately, but, you know, rest in peace to Rufus and the fact that he's not going to be there, but I am pumped for this film, and I just don't suck, to quote Cody Leach. Don't let this movie suck. Please, please. All right, y'all, continuing with our last couple of picks here. So, The King's Man. That's right. The Kingsman? The Kingsman. This was a film that was originally supposed to be coming out in February, and then it was pushed all the way back to September. Neither of those months really bode that good of an indication about quality of a film. But, you know, it is a prequel to Kingsman's, the whatever service and the Golden Circle. I don't know. The trailers for me to this felt much more serious and didn't have the whimsy and just the poking fun at James Bond, the just giddiness that I appreciated so much about the first film. Second film went just a little too over the top in my estimation. But yeah, now it is coming out September 18th. You've got Ralph Fiennes. I always, I'm uncertain about the proper pronunciation of his name. But yeah, we're going back to World War I era stuff, which, just to make mention, 1917 was one of my favorite and most anticipated films of this upcoming year. But then when I realized, oh, okay, it's actually been in limited release since Christmas, and so jumping forward, technically a 2019 film, so it can't be, I don't know. It's, not in the 2020 distinction, regrettably, but The King's Man, I'm hoping it's going to be good. I mean, with Vaughn still directing, I know it's going to be expertly directed, but the story and the origins of the organization, I'm intrigued, but the tone of the trailers didn't feel like Kingsman to me. So that's one of the biggest things. Next up, we have Eternals, November 6th, the second Marvel movie that we are getting this year. And this is also Phase 4, obviously. It's supposed to span, eons, essentially, these immortal, essentially eternal, kind of like Guardian type characters, not Guardians of the Galaxy, but, celestial almost. The cast is stacked. This is, it's a very similar situation that I approached Ant-Man and Guardians of the Galaxy with, where I don't know squat about Eternals. I think it's a Kirby thing, if I'm not mistaken, and Kirby also went to do New Gods after he left Marvel, over in DC, he's a guy who jumped back and forth and stuff, but, I mean, between, Nanjiani and, there's just this awesomely stacked cast, and this could potentially be the next of those unknown properties that just wins people over. That's obviously the blueprint, that Marvel is going for, but yeah, there's no guarantees it's going to be the massive runaway success. I feel like there is an essence of closure, just like I was saying with Black Widow. Black Widow being a prequel, to all the stuff that we saw in Infinity War and Endgame. I feel like there is a sense of closure that a lot of casual audiences felt with Marvel as a studio, and I can't deny the interest in stuff like WandaVision and Falcon and Winter Soldier and some of the stuff that they're doing for Disney Plus, but I really do feel like there is going to be a little fatigue and just moderate disinterest with some of these new properties, but maybe Eternals will, very much like Guardians of the Galaxy, as I said, be a big surprise. Everybody loves it. I'm really curious to find out what it's all about, and I have too much other stuff to watch, read, and so on before this film comes out, so I'm not going to give it an extent of research beforehand because I don't know where I would find the time, and I don't have a problem with that. I actually really enjoyed going into Ant-Man and Guardians and some of these other, like Doctor Strange, for instance, who just lost their director. Ouch. Creative differences. Marvel, I don't know if you're in the same esteemed regard as you were. So yeah, Eternals, once again, I'm uninitiated, but excited at what the prospects could potentially be bringing myself and a lot of fans of comics that aren't just deep diving like I never really have. It's like a series here, series there, certain characters have I given that proper attention to. But yeah, bring it on, Marvel. Give us a new favorite that we didn't even know existed. So, and then lastly, man, how could this not be my most anticipated? Denis returning to sci-fi after Blade Runner 2049, after an amazing turn in Arrival. I've watched pretty much all of his English language films at this particular point. Amazing French-Canadian director. Prisoners just blew my mind with the intensity of it. Sicario, this guy just, for him to be doing Dune is my most anticipated, and the last thing coming out this year. I was initially thinking I was going to talk about the Tomorrow War, but Chris McKay and all that stuff, there's just too few details available at this particular point, but that still would not be my most anticipated of the year. My most anticipated film of the year, I appreciate the David Lynch version, okay? And I like the first version that the director of Highlander did for the Sci-Fi Channel. I think it's pretty good, but Children of Dune, the sequel, which is actually kind of adapting a few aspects of the second book and maybe some of the fourth book, I can't remember, but primarily the third book, which is called Children of Dune, has James McAvoy. That one is awesome, man. I love the glowing eyes and just the visual aesthetic of it. I think they gave him just a little bit more budget after the success of the first Dune miniseries on Sci-Fi. But yeah, Denis and this ridiculous cast that has Javier Bardem, Timothée Chalamet, Jason Momoa. The list goes on and on and on and on. I cannot wait for this movie. I am just hopeful that it doesn't bomb. I'm hopeful that it is. I think The Witcher has shown that there's a hunger for this sort of medieval fantasy sort of thing, and this is not this is medieval aspects, but in a galaxy far, far away, but much more intellectual, a much deeper and richer mythology in a lot of ways. And that's not to knock Star Wars fans, because I am a Star Wars crazoid, and I love my Star Trek too. I love sci-fi. I'm actually going to be doing some reviews of the Herbert books leading up to the release of this film, because I've only read the first 3. I don't even know if oh man, I know there's Heretics, there's Children, there's Chapter House, there's all these others. I had a best friend growing up who was so into Herbert's Dune, it was just insane. And he even read some of the stuff that Brian, his son, did, along with Kevin J. Anderson, and then was working off notes and stuff like that. But Frank Herbert had a style and a prose all his own, and I cannot wait to see what Denis does bringing this to the big screen. They're spending hundreds of millions of dollars on this, just like they did with Blade Runner 2049. So I don't know. I'm confident in him. I'm not necessarily confident in moviegoers, but I'm supremely hopeful that this becomes a big success and becomes the new Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones. There's no Star Wars movies coming out for a number of years until we presumably get this Old Republic stuff. So, I mean, the playing field is wide open. Let's just see Denis do amazing things. I can't wait. That comes out on December 18th. That's probably an important aspect to mention. So I'm going to leave it at that and honestly get going on some of the other videos that I have. I'm seeing 1917 this evening. As I mentioned earlier in the video, that was going to be one of my 2020 most anticipated until I realized that, it actually came out in limited in 2019. So it's not a part of the process, hence the Golden Globe wins and Oscar consideration presumably. But I've been Jaime En Fuego. Y'all can find moi on all social media sectors like Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, just like you see below. I'm trying to get over 1,000 subscribers so I can do like Super Chat and just a much more interesting live show, which has really been an intention for a long time. But in the year of 19, I did reviews of so much Star Wars stuff, so many different art house films, comic book films, comedies. I mean, things that you would just not see on the horror show, which is where you typically check me out. And I'm actually starting a book of the month thing here on Enfuegotainment that I'm very excited to be announcing. I've been doing Book of the Month for Hail to Stephen King on the horror show for a while. I'm going to start doing a Book of the Month of the non-horror variety here, and I'm looking for some input, thinking about starting a Patreon. Don't know if that's just, you know, putting the cart before the horse or anything, but I mean, people seem to like me on the other channel, and the few who tune in here, I appreciate all of you, so like, share, subscribe, all that rad statusness. The Horror Show channel, obviously, is where we are nearly 31,000 strong, and you can see me just slogging away a number of days along with Cecil Laird, Susie Von Slaughter, Marsha Parker. We have a great team over there and an awesome supporting cast from, you know, Mercer to Lou, who hasn't been on in a while, Robert Dewell. I mean, yeah, it's a very cool extended family. Producer Dave. We've lost a few people, you know, here and there, but hey, you know, let the love shine, and make sure to like, share, and subscribe over there if you have not. And then the other channel you can find me on every single week is Monday evenings, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific on the Willis Screedia YouTube channel. My dude CP teams up with myself, along with Lindsay Mimsy, as I so affectionately call that badass dude out in LA, from My Two Cents of Nonsense. That's his YouTube channel. We basically have some palaver about the previous weekend's box office, numbers and so on, you know, what performed well internationally, domestically, so on. We make some predictions about the upcoming weekend and then discuss some of the biggest news stories in that field of entertainment from the previous 7 days. So, I've been Fuego. Y'all have been rad status. 2020 is hopefully going to be cool, even if you may think this list seems a little paltry. But until the real of Ka comes around once more, I shall say hasta luego, cinemigos, and constant viewers and readers alike. Get ready for the reading portion. But I am hopeful that we get to share more of this sooner rather than later. Happy 2020! Feliz Año Nuevo! Ho, ho! Bienvenidos, fans of the planet's... Blech.